This is pre-algebra lesson 1-4, integers and absolute value. Here are some important vocabulary words that go along with this lesson. Opposites are numbers that are the same distance from zero on the number line, but in different directions. For example, if I have a number line here, and this is 0, let's say this is positive 3 and this is negative 3. These two numbers are opposites because positive 3 is to the right 3 units on the number line and negative 3 is to the left 3 units on the number line. So they are opposites. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers. No fractions, no decimals. Absolute value is a number's physical distance from 0 on the number line. It is never negative. We show absolute value using these two vertical symbols. So the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. It is not an opposite. It is a number's physical distance from 0. And a physical distance can never be negative. I can go in a negative direction, but I cannot walk a negative 3 feet. I can't say, oh, please walk negative 7 feet. No, I can walk 7 feet backwards. That's a positive 7 feet in a negative direction. Right? If you've ever watched a running back in football, get the ball behind the line of scrimmage and he runs to the left and then he runs to the right, and he runs to the left and he runs to the right trying to avoid tacklers. He has run a lot of yardage, but he hasn't gone in the right direction. He's still behind the line of scrimmage. So when he gets tackled and they say he has a loss of 3 yards, that means he ran for 3 yards in the wrong direction against where he wanted to go. He didn't actually run negative 3 yards. He had a loss of 3 yards, which means he had 3 yards in the wrong direction, which is basically absolute value. So if I asked you what's the absolute value of negative 17, it would be 17. What's the absolute value of 3? It is still 3. It's not negative 3. It's not an opposite. It is a number's physical distance from 0, which is always positive. Temperature is often a value that is expressed in both positive and negative terms, especially if you live in like Alaska, parts of Canada, the North Pole, parts of the Arctic. Okay, that's going to be very cold. Or Death Valley, very warm. Okay, when it is very cold outside, it may be 20 degrees below 0. When it's very hot, it may be 89 degrees above 0. To write temperatures as being above or below 0 without words, you use symbols. Negative 20 means 20 degrees below 0. Plus 89 or just 89 degrees is above 0. In general, if a number does not have a negative sign associated with it, it is considered to be positive. Okay, so if it has no negative sign, it's positive. That's just the way the world works. If I say 72, that means it's positive 72. I don't have to write positive 72. But if I write negative 46, that means it's negative 46 or minus 46. Okay, if a number is negative, there'll be a negative sign in front of it. If there's no sign in front of it, it is assumed to be positive. All right, we're going to write integers, which are positive and negative whole numbers. Okay, that's all they are, positive and negative whole numbers. For each situation. If you lose $7, that means you're down $7. That's minus 7. Notice you do not need to put the dollar sign because we're just asking to write integers. Okay, no symbols, just the integers. If I find $10, that's good for me. That's $10 more in my pocket, so this way you could put plus 10, but you don't need the positive symbol because if it doesn't have a negative sign, it's assumed to be positive. If I deposit $50 in your bank account, that means, hey, you have $50 more than you used to have, so that's plus 50. If you withdraw $32, you may think, hey, I have $32 now in my pocket. Don't think of what's in your hand, think of what's in your account. If you withdraw $32, that means you took $32 out of your bank account, so now your bank account is down to $32. It's a minus 32. Okay? If you lose 3 yards, okay? Lose 3 yards, that's a negative thing. If you go 8 steps forward, that's a positive thing. If you go 13 steps backwards, that's a negative thing. So those are the way you write integers. You don't need to write labels with them because they are simply just that, integers. Now, if you're going to graph, you're going to ask to graph things on a number line. There's some very important things that you need to understand for number lines. Number one, not all number lines have to go from negative 10 to positive 10. They can go whatever. The important thing is your increments need to be equal And you need to label enough of your number lines so that people know if you're counting by ones, counting by twos, counting by tens, whatever. If you're going to graph a number on the number line, it literally needs to be on the number line, not above the number line or below the number line. I get people who try to graph points on a number line and they put them way up here in the sky. They're like, oh, 2 is right here. That's not on the number line. That's above the number line. That is not correct. If I'm going to graph these numbers, first of all, to graph a single number on a number line is a dot. It has to be a closed dot because here's 2. Do not put something like this. Okay? Just a single dot solidly filled in. This means something entirely different when we start working with inequalities. And you don't need to have it ridiculously big because now I don't know if it's 2 or 2.5 or 1.5. Okay? A single dot, just large enough so people can see it at its point. So there's 2. -2 would be at the -2 position right here. -3 is at the -3 position right here. 5 is over here at 5. And 1 is at 1. So I've now plotted all my points. The great thing about once you've plotted them on a number line, it's really easy to put them in order from least to greatest. Because now all we have to do, if we're going to put them in order from least to greatest, read from left to right. From left to right, this reads -3, then goes -2, then goes 1, then 2, then 5. There they are in order from left to right because they've already been graphed on the number line in order. Number lines must be written with the negatives on the left, okay, and the positive numbers on the right. You can't do it any differently. Okay, positive numbers on the right, negative numbers on the left. You can't reverse a number line because we don't do that. Negative numbers are to the left, positive numbers are to the right. All right, find the absolute value. The absolute value of -5. A -5 is 5 units from 0 on the number line, so it is 5. The absolute value of 4 is 4 units from 0 on the number line, so it's 4. Number 3 says the opposite of the absolute value of -10. So let's do this in 2 parts. So now I have this, the absolute value of -10 is 10. So the opposite of the absolute value of 10, okay, is -10. That's the only time you'll see a negative, is if you have a negative sign on the outside of your absolute value. Okay? Because then it doesn't go away. Number 4, the opposite of the absolute value of 13, because that's what this says. A negative is the same thing as saying the opposite of. A very good phrase to learn. A negative sign is the same thing as saying the opposite of. If I'm going to subtract 3, that's the opposite of giving you 3. Okay, so the absolute value of 13 is 13, but the opposite of 13 is -13. Very important things to learn. Word phrases and where negative signs are in a particular problem have a lot to do with the final answer.